Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Buildathon 2026 live training session with Michael Maguire. And we're delighted that you can join us live here today. And thank you for those of you who have arrived early or on time. We are going to give it maybe another few moments before we kick off live. So bear with us while we give the other attendees a few more moments to join us. People are coming in from all across the globe at all different types of time zones. So we're going to be patient and maybe wait 4 to 5 minutes to make sure everybody gets in. But welcome to you all.
I would also say feel free to use the chat function and let us know which part of the world you're attending from. That would be nice to hear. Currently, I'm in Glasgow in Scotland.
And I'm coming in from the west coast of Ireland. So if we have, yeah, we have lots of names coming in there. So love to see where you guys are coming from. Definitely give us a taste and a flavor for what parts of the world we're working with here this afternoon. There's some names I recognize as well. I think I've been in touch with some of you guys over the last few weeks. So welcome. Lovely to see you online. Hello from India. Good afternoon. Good evening to India. And China. Fantastic. And Peru and Nigeria. Wonderful. We've got a nice mixture across the globe already, Michael. So good
Yeah,
representation. It is a global competition at the end of the day. So it's wonderful to see so many different regions and so many different countries participating, and you're all very, very welcome.
I love when I see where everyone's coming from. I love to check in Google which time is it now in those different regions. And obviously, we have people who are early morning, people who are late evening. Yeah, so thanks very much for giving up your time.
I think we have a lot of late evenings on the Asian side and probably some early mornings on the US side or on the South American side. Just to let you all know as well, guys, the session will be recorded and at the end of the training, it will be posted onto our YouTube channel. I will share that link with each and every one of you so you have access to the content again. So we'll give it another couple of moments. We're just 4 minutes after 2 local time here in Ireland and the UK. So we'll just give it another 2 moments and we'll kick off.
I'm happy to do that. I think one of the things as well, a lot of people use different chat functions. So whether it's Zoom or Teams or some of the others, and when you join one and then you go to join another, you have to give different permissions, update the
Mhm.
drivers, etc.
Mhm.
So yeah, always good to give it a couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas contradictory to that, if you're attending any of my live sessions, if you're one of the students who attends ever the university where I teach, and I start teaching at 2, then the door gets closed at 2 and the teaching begins. I expect everybody to be there on time and ready to go. I'm a stickler for time.
So there's a tiny bit of leniency when you're coming online with Michael,
Yeah,
but
I don't mind
that's good to
online.
know.
Yeah,
That is good to know. And again, we are so mindful that so many people are giving up their evenings, their nights, their
yeah.
mornings. I know in our last live session, we had somebody come in at 2 a.m. Local time for them. So if anybody's coming in at an unusual time, let us know and we'll give you a shout out while we're waiting. A lot of afternoons and evenings. Okay. Okay. I'll get ready to share up my screen and we'll kick off very shortly. Okay, we'll get going. Welcome everybody to the Global Student Training this afternoon with Michael Maguire. And thank you all for joining us live. And thank you all for joining us in the Buildathon 2026 competition. My name is Vanessa. I'm the project manager for the competition, and I'm just going to share a little bit of background on the competition with you guys, give you a quick reminder of some housekeeping things to do ahead of the competition, and also a reminder of the prizes. So maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I will just go through a couple of slides with you before we hand you over to Michael, who will take you through some live training on Formasite design and Revit. So it's, as you know, it's an Autodesk Learning Partner competition and gives you guys some real world experience of working with Autodesk software, particularly Formasite Design and Revit. Competition is run over 2 days, August the 18th and the 19th, and it's a team challenge. So everybody here on the call is a member of a team and has registered with us, and we have your team details to hand. So welcome aboard again. I just wanted to go through some items here in relation to our website. So we have a dedicated website for the Buildathon. I just want to make sure you guys can see, just going to minimize this. So we've got on this website, there's quite a few details, and I encourage you to revert back to the website as much as you can, please. And apologies for my colleague there on Teams. But the Buildathon website, we have a new section in there, which we post on regularly. There are links to supporting materials and to videos, which are useful in the build up to the competition. We have numerous different training dates going on across the globe as well in multiple languages. So please check in to make sure that, if you want to get another session, you can do that by keeping an eye on the dates and the regions where the training is being delivered, and is translated into 5 languages. But what I want to say to you guys here today is certainly follow us on Instagram. There's our Instagram link, and make sure you keep a check on our YouTube channel as well. This is where we post all of the video content, and all of the live sessions will be hosted on the YouTube channel. So anybody who wants to revert back to it, it will be there in the run up to the competition. I do want to remind you to make sure that you have your software downloaded well in advance of the competition so that we don't run into any last minute download issues. But please ensure that you go to the Autodesk website, the education sector, and have Autodesk Formasite Design and Autodesk Revit up and running well ahead of the beginning of the competition on August the 18th. And again, there's a link here, and I'm reverting you back to our Buildathon website again to remind you of all the training material that we have posted on that site. We have a competition app, the Buildathon app, which has been running for the last number of weeks, and quite a few of you are on this. And for those of you who aren't, I would encourage you to certainly have a look, because the reason to go onto this app, guys, and to follow this app is we do send out quite a bit of tips and tricks. So every week we have a live global feed, and it's content in relation to the Buildathon, in relation to Formasite design, in relation to Revit, and material that's going to be very, very supportive as you prepare for your entry into the competition on August the 18th. And the link to register is here. So I'll be sharing all this with you at the end of the call. But once again, if you haven't signed up for it, please do. You will get all the material that has been posted. You will be able to see it once you sign up. So just a quick reminder of the awards and the recognition for this global competition. We have some fantastic prizes to give away. As you're probably aware, the first prize is the Global Impact Package. So the winning team will be invited to a regional Autodesk office or Autodesk event where they will get an opportunity to showcase their design to Autodesk leadership. So their travel and accommodation will be covered, and there will be a private dinner and a meet and greet to meet Autodesk leadership to showcase your final design. In addition to this, there's an Autodesk Certified Professional Exam voucher for each of the team members, a 12-month subscription to Globally Training platform for each of the team members, as well as a 3D Connection Space Mouse Wireless, one for each of the team members, and some Autodesk merchandise. So there's quite a bit of prizes in there for the winning team. It's an exciting prize, and we're excited about this competition. And as I said, it's the first time we have run this on a global level. So this particular prize comes with the value of roughly around $10,000. So it's a substantial prize. And of course, we have an award for second place. And this is an organized virtual mentorship pairing with an industry leader. So this is the team that come in second. They will get the opportunity to spend time with an industry expert to talk about their project and to present it and to be guided in their career path. In addition to this, they also receive an Autodesk Certified Professional Exam voucher, the subscription to Globally Training, and some Autodesk merchandise. Approximate value $5,000. Third prize is an Autodesk Certified exam voucher for each of the team members, a 12-month subscription to Globally Training, and again, some Autodesk merchandise. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to have some other awards. As the entries are coming in, and as Michael and the judging team are looking through all the different entries, their desire is to extend the prizes out to some other good applicants. So there will be teams handpicked by the Autodesk members in the Buildathon jury, and those winning teams will get a certified professional exam voucher, again a 12-month subscription to Globally Training, and we do have some more CAD Mouse Pro Wireless left for those. So we have a substantial first prize, second and third prize, and then some wild card awards as well. So just a reminder on the important dates. Project briefing is August the 18th. This is at 8 a.m. in your local time zone. So we have 4 time zones set up here. And as each of you have registered, your team captain has selected a country. And that country will fall into one of these categories. So it will be EMEA, APAC, US or East Coast or US West Coast. So the briefing is very, very important. That will take place at 8 a.m. on August the 19th in your region. So please be online for that, and we will be communicating with you the link for that well in advance. And the final project submission will be at 6 p.m. the following day. So you have 34 hours to complete your project, starting at 8 a.m. on August the 18th and finishing at 6 p.m. in your local region on August the 19th. And with that, I want to wish you all very best of luck in Buildathon 2026. We are thrilled to have you with us. But before we get there, I want to hand you over to Michael Maguire, who is our lecturer in Digital Construction and BIM in the Glasgow Caledonian University, who will now take you through some live Autodesk Forma site design and Revit training. And thank you for your attention. Michael, I will send this to you.
Thank you. There we go. Hopefully that's visible on my screen and the sound and everything's coming through okay.
Perfect.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was a really nice introduction to what the competition is. And I have been seeing some other competitions that have the Autodesk ones that have just finished, the Designathon, and lots of social media presence on that has been fantastic from the winners, just even from the students who have taken part as well. That's been fantastic to see. So the agenda for today's session then is really splitting this into two parts. So maybe looking at roughly approximately 1 hour, where we're going to look at how best to tackle the competition. So we have the kind of Revit side, looking at the user interface, the different parts of Revit that you might use to tackle this. How might you approach it before even setting Revit up or starting with Revit? And there'll be a bunch of tips and tricks there as well. Area plans within Revit are going to be super important. You can use Revit for this. You can also use other software like AutoCAD if you prefer, and that's a strength for you. For dividing up the spaces and the areas, I'm going to focus using Revit, and I'll show you one method of doing that. That doesn't mean this is the only way to do it. You have any way to achieve the layout of the areas and the spaces from a given brief, let's say. So I'll show you one way of tackling that, which is creating area plans within Revit, legends and schedules, and then understanding the project itself. And then from that, possibly, different members in your team might have a strength in Revit, and they would like to then create the conceptual area plans, the sketches, those concepts into a simple building, while other members in your team might have more strength in Forma. So we have a little break in between the two sections. And then when we come back from that, we can look at Autodesk Forma, how to set up a new project, and how to recreate or model what your concept looks like, let's say, so that once you've got that site and your various concepts, you can then begin analysing them. And from the analysis, we're going to then take the next kind of section that's here, environmental context, the analysis tools, designing in Forma, and so on. These are all really embedded within these two sections here. Vanessa mentioned a couple of things already there that we'll dwell on as we kind of go through. We'll highlight these. That once you have a concept and you have an initial design and you've given it some thought, you really want to show how you're using Forma and the outcomes from Forma to then influence future designs. So how might you develop or change that concept? So we'll have a look at that as well while we work through the tasks today. And then all the way through from concept 1 through to a chosen concept, you want to be able to make the job really easy for the judges, the jury panel. You want to be able to show them that you understand the tools within Forma and the tools within Revit, and you're able to analyse a design, understand the output, and then use that output to say, maybe it is too noisy in this area, there is too much sunlight in this area, or not enough in this area. And here is how then we adapted and we changed the concept. So maybe concept 1 becomes concept 1.1 or 1.2. It's a minor tweak, that type of thing. And then you may have from that an entirely different concept. If there are 2 or 3 or 4 of you in the team, each of you have the opportunity to come up with your own concept, and then you analyse them and determine which one of the 4 is the best, and can you even tweak that more to improve it even better. But remember what you're going to produce at the end of this, like a poster idea with images and some concepts and some analysis. You want to make the judge's job really easy to understand what you've done and why you've done it. Okay? So here's pretty much how I was starting this concept. I'll zoom in a little bit to this to let you see. I'm going to show you 2 different things that I started with. So if you're going to be given a project brief, let's say that project brief is going to give you a list of spaces, So 1 kitchen, 5 small meeting rooms, 5 private offices, and so on. That brief that you get will give you a minimum and maximum area that you're allowed to use. So let's say with this one, I'm going to go, let's say somewhere in the middle, or maybe this is the maximum. So I'm looking at a space that is 49 square meters. In this case, I'm working in square meters. For me, that's around 7 meters by 7 meters, and we need one of them, so that would be 49 meters, right? 5 small meeting rooms, and the brief will say maximum 15 square meters, for example. So this is not exactly like the brief you're going to be given. You'll be given something that's very similar to this, but with different room names and different room sizes and a number of. So if I need an area of 15 square meters and I need 5 of them, then I'm going to need 75 square meters, for example. Okay. I've used different colors and text here to divide up the building into 3 stories. So for me, the base level, right? In the UK, we call this the ground floor level. I appreciate in some countries, this is called the first floor level, where you enter the building at. I'll call it the base level just now. If I add in to my spreadsheet every piece of text that's just describing what we need. So a plant room for plant equipment, the air conditioning, the boiler. We might need 3 restrooms, bathrooms, WC per story, 1 lift, 2 staircases, etc. So some of these are going to appear on every level. And then we need an IT room, a server, a print and copy room, a board room, and so on and so on. Okay? So if my building footprint, that is when you look down above the building, if you look from a bird's eye view straight down, the amount of area that I'm allowed to take up maximum is going to be a constraint that you'll be given. So maybe, in this case, for this example, I'm going to use 600 square meters. I've been able to accommodate all of these spaces, and all I've done is I've totaled these up in the spreadsheet. So I'm going to take up a footprint of 461 square meters on the ground, or the base level, 447 square meters on that first floor level, or the next one up, and then 291 in the one above that. Okay? So I've come up with an idea of how that might work. I also did it again. So what I would recommend you do is maybe this exercise. So this time, what I want to do is make it, instead of 600 square meters, what happens if it's only 400 or 500 square meters or 1,000? Okay, so you can practice this multiple times. This time I took what I already had existing, and then I moved some of the spaces. So you'll notice this time I've ended up with a base level and then a first, second, and third. So because I reduced the footprint of the building to 400 square meters, I've had to increase the number of floor levels in the building to accommodate that, right? So you'll notice here, for example, I've had to move the kitchen from this floor level down, and then some of the rooms that were on the ground, I've had to move them to the new floor level, for example. Okay, so that's just one way of tackling this. That's just one way of maybe beginning or starting this. One of the questions that I've had previously, if the building footprint is 600 square meters, why don't I make this equal 600 square meters? Okay, so this would be the next step. Okay, once you've got that spreadsheet, you want to start trying to sketch out. So I did it here as a little sketch, but I've sketched out each of those spaces approximately, maybe something like the right size. But we're going to need circulation space. And it might be surprising to see, but the circulation space on that floor level might be as much as 100 square meters. So again, something you'll be told is here's a list of all the rooms you need. Here is a list of the number of the rooms that you need of those. So 1 kitchen, 5 rooms, and so on. And then we'll give you the area, which is the largest or the smallest those rooms might be. Okay, that doesn't always include the circulation space. So if we also tell you that all circulation space needs to be maybe a certain width, 1800 millimeters or 2400 millimeters or 2 meters, whatever it might be, we'll give you a specification of what width that needs to be. Okay. What you can't do is make any of the spaces bigger than what you're allowed in the schedule, bigger or smaller. So you'll have a minimum and a maximum. And what you can't have then is, imagine this on the bottom right, the southeast space. If that's just an empty room or none of the spaces that have been assigned, you can't add new spaces to the list. So you need to use all the available space and no more. So if this was my original concept sketch, once I start to put the spaces together, I realise it has to change shape because the store had a maximum size and the office has a maximum size and so on and so on. Okay, I got to this point using the spreadsheet and then the sketch, and then the next step for me would be to go and create a little simple model within Revit. So what I thought I would do first of all at this point is just show you that next step before I kind of rewind a little bit. I'll go back a few steps to the beginning of the Revit project and I'll recreate something like this. And then as it's being recorded, anyway, you get to see those steps. For anybody who's brand new to Revit, this might be a little bit boring watching how to begin and create new levels and how to draw walls and use dimensions. But ideally, if you've never used Revit before, then this should give you enough knowledge and skills to be able to recreate something like this. Okay. So within Revit, we have the project browser in here. And as I said, this is one that I've created previously. But if we go in and look at, let's just go and change some of the settings back. I had these little sketch lines switched on. I'll switch that back off just now. There we go, nice neat lines. I've created the meeting spaces that were in there to the size they might need to be, the print room, the server, the office. It asked for 2 staircases. I've tried to position them at the west and the east of the building, the office, stores, reception, collaboration, boardroom space, and so on. Okay, so each of these spaces must be within the tolerance that's in the brief. So one of the things that you'll have to communicate is an area plan for every concept to the judges, and they'll check that your areas are appropriate and they're the correct size. So we can see here, right, the meeting rooms are supposed to be maximum maybe 30 meters squared, but this one here is 92 meters squared. Okay, so there's something wrong here that would need to be addressed or fixed before I could use this as a concept. But we can see that if we create the footprint of the building as well, if it was 600 square meters that I was allowed as a building footprint, the footprint of my building is within that 600 square meters, let's say, that's there. So we can see that as an area as well. And then what we would want to do is take these images of these and the area plans, etc., along with the Forma site design analysis, and then communicate that in the best way you can to the judges. Okay, so even with things like the building, if we want to think about a nice aesthetic angle of the building, what materials are there in terms of, is it, for me, it always looks pretty good being presented when it's just these white walls versus, let's see, what does it look like if we pick up a different type of wall, for example. Yep, like this one. Okay, so you might think that that looks more aesthetic, You might think that the other wall system looks more aesthetic. There's no right or wrong answer. You just got to make that judgment based on what your team, your preference is for that. Okay, so I will close then these down. I don't need to save that. And I just want to remind you that if this was the first step, okay, I would like to now try and recreate this building. So on the base level are all of these rooms to these sizes. I need to try and figure out a way of putting them together. So the facilities and cleaner cupboard, would that be in the reception? Where would the reception be to the building? Would the meeting rooms be near the reception? Would the print room and the IT server and the storage room and the cleaning store all be together? Is there a reason I would put them together? We have 3 WC or toilet required per story. Might I try and put them above each other? So on the ground floor, if that was on the southwest of the building, I might want to try and do the same thing. So it's immediately above that on the next level and the next level, etc. Obviously, things like the stairs. The stairs are going to go all through all of the story. Do we have a staircase that goes from the ground all the way up to the second floor? Do you have a stair that goes to the first? And then a different stair that goes up to the second. So entirely your decision as a team. But remember to try and then justify why that's going to happen. Okay. So the next, just to show you then if I had that, I'm going to try and attempt to recreate this sketch that I had that ends up something like this, right? So if I put it like that, I'm going to move that onto a different monitor so I can kind of copy my sketch idea. And then we can start our Revit project. So from Revit, I'm just going to click on New, and we'll take the default architectural template and click OK. So the first thing to note is within Revit that we have this bird's eye view. So we're looking straight down. Currently, there is nothing, no building that is here, but this would be my north elevation, my south, east, and west. And this little arrow that's there, we can see if we go to the project browser and expand the elevations, there is the north view. And if we open the north view, there is nothing here to look at yet, but it would look from here in this direction. Okay, so that's what that is there for. That's what it's showing you. If I was to open the north view, there is no building there, but we have the different levels. So I'll make this say the same as what's in my spreadsheet. So if I said base level, I'm going to be asked if I would like to rename these views that are here. So currently it is level 0. And if I said yes to that, then it renames this view the base level. Okay, and we also have level 1. What did we call it in the spreadsheet? First floor level. So let's try that. So all I was doing was clicking on it once, it goes blue. And if I click on it again, I can edit it. So first floor level, and then hopefully you understand now that if I said yes to this, I now have a base level and a first floor level. But if I go back to my spreadsheet, I also need a second floor level as well. So by default, Revit is only going to give me these 2. We also should notice that it is blue and white, which tells me that a corresponding view in the floor plans exists. So we have base level and first floor level. They are parametric. So if I double click this here or double click here, then it opens that view in a bird's eye view. Okay. And to go back, I can go back to one of the other views in elevation and just double click that. So maybe at this point, you might want to discuss with your team what the different story heights are. So maybe it's 4 meters, maybe it's less. So if we again just click on it, you can see it goes blue. So if I click on the 4,000, that's the part that I can edit. So if I said 3,000, then it moves the level down to 3,000. If I say 4,000, it's back to 4,000. So this base level, if you walk into the building, this is what you would be walking on. You imagine the floor would go down deeper than that. So this is the level you would be walking on. And if you go up through the stairs and you step into the first floor level, then again, the floor and then the ceiling and everything comes down here as well. So we want to think that's 4 meters. So it's not floor to ceiling height, it's floor level up to floor level. Okay. And I need to add another here. So we would like to add then the second floor level. So what you'll notice is on the ribbon, we have the architecture tab. And in the architecture tab, we have lots of the build tools for walls, windows, doors, etc. Floors in here, curtain systems, stairs, and so on. We also have along here the level button. So if I click on architecture tab, datum panel, click level, the level tool is active. So it's asking and prompting that I can go and click to begin. And if I hit escape twice just to show you, my cursor is normally the modified tool like this here. But as soon as I click on level, the modified tool goes away and I get a little crosshair that's there. So anywhere at all, if we think about it around about here, if I move my cursor, a green dashed extension appears. And what that's allowing me to do is click in this area to begin drawing the next level. And if I move to here, we can see that green dash again, and I can click to drop that or stop creating it. But something to notice with Revit, you've always got to keep an eye on the cursor. It's trying to draw more levels. So I don't want to draw any more. I only want to draw the one. So if you press escape twice, the first escape in Revit stops drawing anything you've created, but it doesn't end the command. So the second exit is what actually ends the command. Okay, so always hit escape twice. If you want to hit it 3 or 4 times, that's also fine, just to make sure. It makes no difference if you hit it more than twice. Hopefully, you're being quite observant and you'll notice that this level is not blue and white. Okay, so again, we want to make that blue and white so that we can see it here. So anytime you create a new level, you have to go to the View tab. On the Create panel, you'll see Plan Views. And I want to create a new floor plan view. Okay, and this is what pops up. So it says level 2, I'll accept that for now. And by clicking OK, we get a new level here. And if I go back to the elevation, it's now blue and white. The reason you want that blue and white is so that you can actually draw your walls, windows, doors, floors, etc. on those levels. Okay, and then finally, let's change the height. So we'll say 8,000. So using the same as we did before, clicking on it once, click on it a second time. There we go. So second floor level. Would you like to rename this corresponding view? Now, if I said no, this here would be called second floor level, but here in the project browser would still be called level 2. So we have to say yes. And that is us set up, ready to go. So if I just do a little quick demonstration, we will come back to this in a bit. But if I go in and draw in just some walls just now, and we'll do this step by step, don't worry. There's the ground floor level. Okay, so the base level. If I go to first floor level and I create some walls, I'll draw something a little bit smaller. There's we would have that. And if we go to the second floor level, if we had another level, then we would want to go in and switch that on. We can go in and switch it on in here so that we can see it. And then we'll be able to draw our walls for the next, if there was another level to that, if we needed to go to the 3 stories, for example. Okay, so if I take these away, you should be able to get to that point then. So you would create your 3 levels or 4 levels or 5 levels, whatever it is that you need to do for your concept and your design. So the next step is, if we had to go to the base level, we can then draw in or sketch those walls in a rough area where they might be sitting, right? Think of this like a sketch. So from my spreadsheet, we know all of the rooms and we know the approximate sizes of those rooms. And then from my sketch, so I know roughly where those rooms are going to sit. Okay, so something like this. So if I want to try and recreate something like that, we don't need to draw it within here because it's going to be quite a big building. And these are just going to get slightly in the way of this. So what we can do is we can actually draw out here. It's like an infinite piece of paper, an infinite space. If we start to draw in here, what we're going to end up needing to do is maybe move this little elevation marker so that it sits on the outside of the building as well. So to create some walls, here would be the steps. In the project browser, if you want to draw on the base level, then you need to double click the base level to activate it. So let me just show you. If I close down all of the views, right now I have the base level open. If I double click 3D, then I can see the 3D view that's here. If I double click base level in the floor plan view, you can see here on the tab, it's calling it the base level. Okay, so it's obviously a floor plan. It's like a bird's eye view looking straight down, and it is the base level. So we're on the ground floor. Okay, so the base level for us to begin drawing the walls, let's say. So on the architecture tab, on the build panel, you have the option here, which is wall. So if I click that tool, then it activates the wall command. We can also see that the cursor changed from the modify cursor, and it's now a little crosshair. You will also have here in the properties, you can go in and edit the properties of the wall, anything you're creating or anything that you select. Or here in the type selector, if you click that, you will see there are many different types of wall that you can choose to use. Just as a little example, some of these, so they are brick on the outside and then plasterboard on the inside, and all of the different framing materials, cavity, blockwork in between. For this, we don't need that level of detail. You're welcome to use any that you wish. Personally, I'm just going to go and use one of the little partition walls, so like an internal partition wall. So I'll just use this wall that's here. And it picks up its type. And then you have to be really careful here that if it is unconnected here or in here, so it's going to draw from the bottom of the wall up to, we want it to draw to the next level. So currently it's set to unconnected. And this is one of the things that will make the difference between the good and the excellent submissions. So we want to draw up to the next level. So if you remember in the UK, we have base and then first. Okay. So if you have first, then second, then third, then you just choose the next level up. That's it. So the top of the wall is going to be the next level up. That's how it should work. Okay. So I already know that maybe I want to draw for something like 20 meters or so. So when you click to begin, you'll notice that the wall is like a little rubber band. Okay. If you want to, you can point in the direction that you want to draw, and then you can type in the size, like 20,000. For me, this is in millimeters. So if that's going to be 20 meters or 30 meters, or however long it's going to be. Okay, as this is going to be like a sketch, then you can also just drag that out as far as you want and then click to drop it there. Okay, let's come down so we can see now it's asking in which direction do you want to draw. So we can come down in this direction and click again, maybe here. And then let's go back into this direction here. And you'll notice when I have my mouse directly underneath the start point, that little green dashed extension appears again. So I'm going to look for that before I click my mouse. And then to finish, a lot of the different processes in the Autodesk tools are very similar. And you'll see this when you go to Format as well. If you go back to point 1 and you click, then it closes the shape and finishes that shape. Okay? So a tip. So we get tips and tricks as we go all the way through. I'm going to press Escape twice. And if we go to 3D, we can look at that and check at this point that there are no problems. So that's a great tip to have early on. What you don't want to do is when you open this, I'll show you something like this. There's a problem. Okay, so maybe I'll pick these up. They maybe don't show up super well on the screen. Let me pick up the brick wall to show you. There is a problem here. This wall at the back is way too high. So ideally you want to spot that really early so you don't carry on and make lots and lots of detail and changes and everything and then find it later. So I'm just going to set that back so that it isn't a problem. Okay, so if I go back to base level, my initial trial then, when I go back to wall, all I'm going to try and do is recreate the sketch. So if I click to start the wall somewhere and then click to end the wall somewhere, I know that this is circulation space in here. I'm thinking because of my sketch, there's a staircase here and there's a staircase here. And then I have a series of rooms along the top. Now, if there was a room here, how do you propose that we would get into that room, right? So we need the staircase to be here so we can have a door into this space, right? If I just recreate then something like these spaces, so I had something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meeting rooms was in my sketch, and then there was a print room, there was a server room, and then there was an office. So again, how would we get into this office? Okay, so ideally, I'm just going to drag that just now because I'm kind of just sketching at this point, and I'll fix all the room sizes with dimensions before we make areas of them. Okay, so I'll go back to wall, and I know that I had a room here was the boardroom, then I had a collaboration space and another collaboration space. This was maybe going to be my reception area here, and then there was a storeroom, and there was an office, and then another office. There we go. So as per my sketch, this is how I think that this would work. Okay, I knew approximate sizes. So once you have all of your walls in, the next step, going back to 3D, is double check that everything looks okay, right? So again, I'm checking that nothing looks like this. Okay, if there's no issues with that, as a sketch, although it's a 3D model, it's still just a rough sketch in my head. It's a concept. It looks something like this sketch that I created. I now want to check the sizes of the rooms and make them fit this. So if we had a store, that store was allowed to be 8 meters. I'm thinking something like 2 by 4. There's other ways to achieve 8 meters, but I'm thinking 2 by 4 might work. The reception is around 49 square meters. It can be smaller than that. And if you check the brief, maybe it's allowed to be as small as 40 square meters. But I'm going to try and make it as big as I can. So I'm going to try and get it as close to 49 as possible. Okay. So what we need to do then is we need to go up to the Annotate tab. And I'm going to use the Dimension panel, and we have the Aligned Dimension. And what we can start to do then with the dimensions, we can start to add dimensions, and there's different ways to do it. So you'll notice there's a dimension that goes from the center of the wall to the center of the wall. Okay, and we're not going to be super critical that if you create dimensions and these are the area sizes and it's to the middle of the wall, you'll see that this will be allowed. There's other ways to do it where you can dimension to the wall face. Okay, so if we add it so that it's the wall face, we could do that as well. Okay. If it was me tackling this and I'm thinking of it like the Buildathon, I'm going to try and go from the middle of the wall to the middle of the wall. And you can see that approximate size. That was one of the meeting rooms. I think the meeting rooms should be around 5 meters by 6 meters, let's say. So that's quite small at this point. While you add the dimensions, and this is why I would maybe try middle to middle, do you notice if I click for my first click and then my second click is the first wall and the second wall, I can then click a third time to drop the dimension. Okay? Or I can continue clicking and it will select. You see, if I click the mouse, it selects the next wall and the next wall and the next wall and the next wall. And then if I click here in this space, it drops all the dimensions at once. So there's those dimensions. If I did it the other way as well, just to remind that, so we'll do align dimension from the center of this wall to this wall here. And then we'll select the next wall and then the next one again. And then if I click the mouse, it drops the dimension. And then again, escape twice just to drop that tool. As an educator, I would say the number one thing that catches a lot of students out is changing these dimensions. So if you want that to say 5 meters, okay, this is 9 times out of 10, I'll show you what students do wrong first. This is what 9 out of 10 students will do. They will double click that value and this pops up. So this is the wrong way to do it, okay? What Revit is asking you is, what do you want to move in order to change that dimension? We can move 2 things. We can move these 2 walls. If I click this one, so after hitting escape twice, I have the modify tool active. You see that with the cursor. If I click this wall, do you see the dimension here turns blue? Okay, that means it's editable. So if I say 5,000 and press return, that space is now 5,000. So between the center of this wall and the center of this wall is now 5,000. Okay, and we'll do the next one. So be careful. You'll notice it's 3008, but when I select it, a little temporary dimension pops up that's measuring from the face to the face. That's not what I want to do. I want to change this one up here. So 5,000. And then I'm going to work my way along from this wall. I'm going to do each in turn all the way along. Okay, so 5,000. And then the next one, again, this dimension, 5,000. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have one more to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, 5 meeting rooms. There we go. And then these other spaces, if we think about these ones, we're going to do exactly the same thing. But now we have the print room. So if I look at that, the print room was something like 3 meters. So if I click this wall here, I can change the dimension at the top to 3000. So that's the print room. The next one is the server and then the office. So what I might find is when I make the size the server, it might end up being a way out here and it might end up being too big. So we'll see how that works in a little second. What size should the server be? Oh, 3 meters as well. So if we click this wall and we make that dimension 3 meters, there we go. It means that for this office space, if I had one of the offices, this is the last wall to move. So we had storage room, 5 meeting rooms, 2 here, yeah, whatever it might be, right? So let's say that it's meant to be 5 meters, right? So if I take that from the brief, we now have 5 meters, 5 meters, 5 meters, 5 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters, 3 meters, 5 meters, right? So we have all the rooms the correct length. What we need to now work out is what should the width of these spaces in these rooms be. So those meeting rooms should be 5 by 6. So I've got 5 meters. So this space here, this distance, then needs to be 6 meters. And do you see what happened to the corridor? Okay, so it made the corridor only 270 millimeters. So we need to change the next wall. So maybe we are told that it's 1800, whatever it might be on the brief, if it's 1800 or 2400 or whatever it needs to be. So these rooms here now have all started to be the correct area. Okay, so we've got these hopefully now the right size. It's 5 meters by 6 meters, and that should tie in with what we've got for these rooms here, right? I've only got 3 here, but let's say we were asking for 5. I think in my initial brief, I changed it myself to 5. Okay, so now we've got the 5 of them plus a print room and so on. It leaves this space. So the boardroom, and we just do exactly the same thing. So the boardroom should be 6 meters by 7 meters. So if I zoom in here, we know that this is correct and then this is correct. So the wall that I need to move is this one, and it's this dimension that's going from the middle, and we make it 6 meters. Okay. I can't use the little temporary dimensions because they go to the walls that are here, they go to the face and they go to the ones that are in between. I need to know the width of the room. So I'm going to go back to the same dimension tool. So annotate, dimension, aligned. And I'm going to pick up from the middle to the middle and just carry on doing that all the way along to the middle of each of these, if each of these is a space, and then we're going to click to drop that dimension that's there. And then do exactly the same thing I did before. I'm now going to work my way along, and I'm going to start with this wall. So we said the boardroom should be 6 meters by 7 meters. So this dimension here should be 7,000. So this is now the boardroom here. And then there's a collaboration space and another collaboration space, and then the reception. So the collaboration space should be 7 by 7. Well, I've got 6 meters deep. So we could do, let's try it this just now, we'll do 7. So it's slightly small. And then again, this one is 7. We could do 7.5. So maybe 7,500 if we wanted more space for it. And then we're just working along. So if this wall is in the correct place, and then this wall is in the correct place, here's the number 2 thing that a lot of students get wrong in Revit. So the first one was changing these, right? The second most common mistake that I see students make is if they want to change this size here. So we want this to be a reception, for example, right? I'm going to move these out the way just so they're not interfering so we can see. But I want to move this wall to make this space the size of the reception, right? So reception is 7 meters by 7 meters. So again, this is only 6,000 deep. So maybe we want something up 7 or 7.5. What a lot of students do by mistake is they click this wall. So let's make it 7,500, right? And you see that wall moved and it is 7,500. But what that did was it changed the size of the room that we already had correct, the collaboration space. Okay, so this room here is correct. So if I move this wall that way, it changes that room. Okay, so I'm going to click this one. I'm going to make it, we'll start again 7,000. So there's my reception area. And then the next room is going to be like a storeroom, whatever that might need to be for size. So we had, which one was it? Even if it's plant room, 5 by 8, staircases, we'll check the size of them. So a cleaner store, or whatever it might be, right? So let's say it's meant to only be 2,400, but it's way too deep. Okay, it's way too deep. So what we might have to do, and we'll see this throughout our design, is if this is too deep and these rooms here have to be, let's say, narrower, so not as deep. Do you see here? So we can't use more space than the brief says we're allowed to. So if this space is going to be too big, then we need to change the shape of it. Okay, so again, I'll just use wall. You can continue using the same wall type that you already used. And I'll just draw along here. And it means this is correct as a space, but we don't actually want these ones. So what you'll find is you can click on these walls and you can just change the length of them. So if I click on the wall, the little blue dot that's there, and if I click on that wall, that little blue dot that's there, and if I do the same with this one, I have a little bit of wall that I need to add in here. Okay, so then these end up being the size that they need to be, but look what that's done to my building. So the building shape has changed. Okay. Finally, the next step within here, if you think that's correct, your next step is to prove that you've used all of the areas and you haven't increased any of these sizes. So how you do that within Revit, okay, is if we look on the Architecture tab, on the Room and Area panel, the first time you run this, if you drop down the Area button, you have the area plan available, but you'll notice that the area tool is grayed out. It's currently not available. Okay, so we'll click Area Plan, and it asks, which level would you like to make an area plan view for? I'm going to select all because ultimately we're going to draw on all of the different levels at some point. And then we can say OK to that. Would you automatically like to create boundaries from the walls, etc.? You can say yes to this. It will create them all automatically. I'll show you two ways. It's going to do that per level. And you'll see how it's done that. It's created a little purple line round about the building. What it has done is it's created a brand new set of 3 views here. So you had some floor plan views. Now we have area plan views. Okay, and currently it's coming in to say that it's 483.55 square meters, but that's the building perimeter. So that's good if we have a 500 square meter building footprint maximum. If your limit is 400, then it's too big. Okay, 450 is too big. 500, yep, that works fine. So the building footprint currently is 483.5 square meters that's there. If you want to work in square meters or square feet, you can select that little piece of text, and up here you can determine which one you want to use. So for me, it's just square meters, right? So I'll just use that as square meters. Each of these rooms, I would like to put an area or a space in it to tell me the size. Now, if I tried to do that just now, what you'll find is that is all one area. What I need to do is use all of these to divide the areas. So we need to tell Revit that these are walls and these are going to divide each of the areas. Okay? So on the Architecture tab, Room and Area panel, you'll notice that there is a tool called Room Separator and then Area Boundary. So at this point, we want to use Area Boundary. If I click that, and it's set up to pick something. Now you can draw these in. So you could draw a little rectangle, or you could draw in a circle. If you've got a room that's a circle, if you would like to do that, you can do that. But it's set up currently. If we do area boundary, it's set up currently to pick lines. And if I click each of my walls, like so, it puts a little purple boundary against them. Okay, and I'll come back and do that again. I just want to show you the next step. If I add an area, and then again, I want to pick, this is the little text that's going in. I want to pick that it's metric. And what you'll notice is, do you see in each of the spaces that I've just defined the boundary versus this one? Look, do you see, like this is all open here. So it just passes through the walls, but then this one is defined. So what we can then do is go into each of the spaces and we can click to drop that in. So this one is 120 something. So the process is area boundary, click each of the walls. So you want to make sure you pick each of the walls only once. There we go. So all of the external and all of the internal have been selected. And then we pick area. And as we go, you'll notice it's filling a colour into each of the area. So you know if you miss one. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do this, right? And I wasn't going to use this space for any area. Then in my concept, I need to change the exterior wall because I can't have an empty area or an empty space. I can't have any space that's not used. Okay, so we've got now all of the footprint. Everything's all covered. So we have those areas. And it's 31 square meters, or it's measuring to the outside of the wall. We could draw that in and bring in more detail, but that will be absolutely fine. So we've got all of these spaces now at approximately 30 meters for each of the rooms. I want to now change what it's called. Okay, so if, again, like the elevation, if you click once on it and then you click again, I'm going to call this one meeting room. And then the same again here. I'm just going to use copy and paste. So all of the meeting rooms then are called meeting room. That's not meeting room. That should be the print room. And then this should be the server. And then this one here was an office. And again, I want to pay attention down here at some point to how you get into that. And maybe this wall should have been moved further over. And we can see what happens when I move the wall. It's changing the area. How is the area of that in comparison to the spreadsheet? Is it too much? Is it too small? Okay. And then just paying attention to each of these areas and these space sizes then. So meters squared, square foot, whatever it might be. If you get to this point and you have to move some of the walls because the areas are too big, that's why you're achieving this. That's why you're doing this step. Okay, so if this wall here needs to move to the left, you can go back to your base level view and you can change these dimensions. Okay, so if we said 4,500, and if I go back to the base level on the area plan, you'll see everything moved and everything changed in size. Okay, oh, I do notice something. How would I get in this space? Okay, so I have to go in the stairs to get in, or do I access through here? Maybe I go into the office to then access this office. Maybe does it work if the wall is over here? Not enough. Okay, so one to think on when you get to this step is what your fine tweaks might be. What rooms do you need to change, for example? One of the things that I ended up doing with my concept, if this is the boardroom, this one here is a collaboration space, like a big open plan collaboration space. I should have copied and pasted. And then this is the reception, okay? One of the things we could do is we could utilize this space here. So we've got something like 50 square meters. If we made that wider and it was 2,400 millimeters, maybe it would end up closer to almost 100 square meters of space. If you're trying to reduce unused space, then maybe you want to bring the reception area up into here as well, so it's not all just this space here. Okay, and again, just checking in 3D that, yep, that looks okay. And then finally, the last thing to do in the area plan for this level, we want to look at the Annotate tab. If you look at the Colour Fill panel, you have a little tool called the Colour Fill Legend. So if I click that and then just click to drop it, it asks, what scheme do you want? And is this the area, the gross building? You can just accept that. So currently, it's showing you a legend by the type of the area. What you can do is click on it. And then when you click something in Revit, the modified panel appears. So we can click that edit scheme. And then rather than the type, we want to divide it and show it by room name, okay, or area name. This is just a default. It's saying I'm going to set all the colors for you. And if you say okay to that, and then okay again, you get all of the colors appearing for you. So we can see right now we've got area a lot. If I then say circulation, it adds in circulation into here. This one here should be reception. Nothing should be called area, right? So if we said this is stair, maybe this is stair 1, stair 2. There's a store and another store and an office or another store, whatever it might be from my brief and schedule that's there. So you've got one more that's called area. Okay, so this works really well in that if you can screen print this. So if we take a screen print of this area here, we can use that on our poster to show here is where we initially thought the reception would go. Possibly that happened because there's a road here. If there's a road here and it's very noisy, is the meeting rooms in a good position? What about the boardroom? It's going to get a lot of sun in the afternoon and the evening. The reception, where is the car park? Where's the main road? What is the entrance to it? Why did you think the reception would be good here? What about putting the staircases at both ends? Why did you think that was a good idea to do that? One thing that's a little warning, when we look at the ground floor, we've pretty much used up like 500 square meters or so, right? Almost 500 square meters of a 600 square meter footprint, for example, right? So we've used up as much as we can. The next level up is going to be smaller than that, and the next one up is even smaller than that. How is that going to affect where your staircases go? So if your building is getting smaller as it goes up, is it getting smaller like this? It's only using up, let's open up here, the base level. So is it only going to utilize these spaces here? In which case, how do you then get 2 staircases each level? Okay, so you might then think of a different concept. I need to put a staircase maybe here. So maybe a staircase goes here, and on the ground floor, the meeting room goes here, and I have my second staircase in this area here. So on the next level up, it's just a repetition of exactly what we've done. So this is the base level. To do the same thing on the first floor level, you just repeat all the steps. But you open the first floor level, and then you go to the wall tool, and you choose the wall that you want, and then you begin drawing those walls in. So if you think, I will try and make it a little bit smaller this time. So if I know that in my concept, I've just roughly done that, but in my concept, if the upper level is less square meters, okay, so hopefully you can see there's an issue. If this was the staircase, it goes to the roof, right? It goes nowhere. So that won't work if we want to do that. Okay, so maybe we think about in the concept putting the staircase here. And then in the next level up, so if I was doing like a 3-story building, it's even smaller again. Okay, that's why I'm thinking maybe that corner's a good place for the staircase to go. So if we're repeating the same things again, we've got all the internal walls to put in and then the areas to put in. We then have that upper level in that corner. Not only the stairs, but can you also remember what else we want to stack? Any wet rooms or bathrooms? So where were the bathrooms going? Okay, so if we think about that here, maybe I was putting the bathrooms here, right? One here and maybe one over this side or wherever it might go. If we put a bathroom here, do we put the bathrooms here? So they're all together, so they're near the reception. But if my building then gets smaller and the bathrooms were here, how does that work then? Where do the bathrooms go now? So if we put the bathrooms here, then where does the staircase go? So do think about that vertical articulation, how you're going to move between the different levels. Okay? So that's the plan. Ideally, what you would have then is, if we go to that little concept that was there, it's quite similar. You'll notice it's very similar in what's being created. So we can say there's the base level. Okay, there's what that looks like. We go to level 1, then we would repeat that for level 1. Maybe there's a big open plan. What did we have? An open plan 400 square meters office, plus 2 staircases, 3 WC, the lift and a store. Okay, so we start to put areas in here as well. So we think about the area boundary and what we need to add in there. So for area, we've put in 3 WC and a store and 2 staircases, a lift, whatever that might be. Okay, and then carry that on upstairs. So you will end up with 3 different stories or 4 stories or 2, however it works for your brief. And each of the plans will have all of the different areas. Here we go, showing all the rooms have been used and showing that they're not bigger than the brief facilitates. Okay, so I would say that's a good point to pause. I would ask at this point if anybody has any questions. This might be a good point to ask them. I do see Q&A.
There is, Michael. Yes, I think I might reply to one from Kevin, and I might just run that question by you as well. We
Yep.
asked if the location of the project, country, city, or district will be provided by Autodesk, or will the teams be free to define it themselves? So I have said that the location won't be given, that each team is free to choose their
Yep.
own site. It can be a site
Yeah.
on their own campus or any sort of local site. Would you
Yeah.
agree or okay?
I 100% would agree with that. I would also go a little bit further on that and say it's a really good opportunity to pick a site that maybe has some issues so that you can show how you deal with them. Flooding, noise, maybe there's a lot of shadow, a lot of really high buildings. How do you deal with getting light in or energy? Maybe it's very open and it's very, very windy. How do you deal with that? So it might be worth thinking about which site you use so that you can almost use it to score points, let's say.
Mm, yeah, makes sense. We have another question then asking, will the competition specify the architectural typology we must design, such as housing, residential, commercial, or mixed use? Or is it open for teams to decide?
Yes, it will. It will tell you exactly what the building is, and it will give you a list of all of the rooms that you need to accommodate, and it will give you a maximum footprint of the building, exactly like I've been trying to do. So you will only get a list of all the rooms. You decide where they go on the site, which level they go on the north, south, east, west, etc., which rooms go near which rooms. So I just mentioned a minute ago, would I put the restrooms, the bathrooms next to reception? That's maybe a good idea for people visiting. But now that locks it into place for the rooms above, really so things like that. Yes, the type of building, exactly what it is, you'll also be told. And when we give you every space, you get a minimum and a maximum for every space. And it must be between these.
Perfect, super clear. Are we allowed to complement our Revit work with other software tools or plugins as long as the final submission remains in Revit?
Um, the big one for me with that, I don't really see an issue with it because it's going to be screen captures that you produce. The main points are actually coming from Forma site design.
Mhm.
So it's Forma site design is the must use and must use to influence your design. Uh, if someone didn't know Revit and they wanted to use AutoCAD, that wouldn't be held against them. AutoCAD is obviously you can create the area plans, you can't create the 3D. And we'll go on and look at the next step when we do the next part. We'll look at Forma and how we recreate that. But you can still use AutoCAD and you can ask it for the area and it will give you the area in square millimeters. Just be aware that you have to convert them to meters. But yeah, you can.
Okay, we have a building codes question. Should our project comply with local building codes and planning regulations of the site in which it
Well,
is located?
at this point, no, it doesn't need to, which is hopefully the answer you want to hear. Um, you'll be given a list of room names and room sizes. And for example, if we just said that it was 2 meters for corridor widths, in some parts of the world that might not be suitable and it might need to be 2200 or 2400. So you just stick to the room sizes that are being given. In terms of other building codes, no, at this point, it's just a concept.
Perfect. And finally, then, all the team members in a team should be online during the 2-day contest.
No, you don't need to be online for it. It's not attendance taken. You download all the materials, you share them between your team, and you work in your team offline together, and then you submit that work within the deadline. That's it.
Yes, and I would just kind of add to that as well. It would certainly be really good if as many of the team as possible could be online for the initial briefing. For when we
Yeah.
hand over the parameters and the scope of the project, and that, as I said, is 8 o'clock in your local time zone. All times will be communicated with you guys over the next few days on email. But if you could be online for that hour, that would be very beneficial for sure.
Yep. And then there is another how will the workflow
Starting from Revit to
starting from
Forma and
Revit.
vice versa.
We are not prescribing an exact method to do it. there are ways to do it. Revit and Forma, depending on which version of Revit you use, you can take a Revit model directly to Forma site design. That's not being assessed. It's entirely up to you how you do it. The way I'm going to show you next, we'll have a little break, 15 minutes or so after this, and then I'll show you how to start creating the Forma site design part. I'm not using the embedded tools purely because some people might use older versions, and I want to give everybody the same chance. So we're trying to not prescribe as much as possible, really, other than these are the rooms, these are the sizes, and you must use Forma site design to influence your decisions on how you shape your concepts.
Perfect. I think we're caught up on the questions for now.
Excellent.
Okay.
So we take 15 minutes and come back. So we'll start at, let's say, 15:45. It's almost 15:30 for me, so we'll make a start at 15:45. If everybody's good with that.
Great. I'll just drop that into the chat.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys in 15 minutes.
And when we come back, then it will be Forma site design, and it's the next part of the task then. Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. See you soon.
Great.
Excellent. So we have now, if that wasn't the fun part, which I think is, we have an even more fun part. We go from Revit into Forma site design. Ideal. Just share it again. There we go. So looking at this time then Forma site design. I have, let's see, the Teams is just actually encroaching across. I'm just going to move it. There we go. That was just onto my space there. So once we have something like this idea, this concept, if we have the 3 stories and we would like to go now and analyze that, that should now impact or influence any future designs or iterations of this design. I'm just going to add on the annotate aligned dimension again. I'm actually just going to add the overall, like the overarching length of that. So you'll notice here I'm just picking up the first and second click for the dimensions of the exterior walls. And then maybe I want to know this length here, this in here. And finally this part, I think we know. We should be able to kind of infer from this anyway. So once I take a note of what these dimensions might be, if I take a little recording of that screen print, note them down, whatever it might be, I'm going to try and recreate them here, and then what the second level we think might look like. So it might look something like this. We can see them here. There's that next level up, and then the third level that's here. Okay, so I want to try and remake that in Forma site design. So if we go to the Forma hub, so go to this site for Forma site design, we can click, we want to start a new site design project and go and create a new project. What would you like to call it? Let's call this Training 2. So we'll call it Training 2 and create that. So somebody asked, will you be given a site? And you won't. What I would like to do in this case is I know a site that I would like to use, and I'm going to zoom in and go and find that. If you're using too large or too great of a site, you'll notice here, zoom in to select your geolocation. So if I zoom in, I can go and find that site. I'm going to find a site that I know that's relatively close to me. Let's go and find that in this area where it might be. Yep, we can start to find that around here. So something around about this site area here. I know the site it is an area I would like to kind of work and develop on. If you zoom in too much, you'll see that the selected area is too small. So if you zoom back a little bit, you have a little window in between that it likes that kind of a size in between the two. Okay, so once you see the confirmed geolocation, you know you've zoomed in enough and not too much. I would like to not be zoomed in too much so that I can see some of the existing buildings and take them into my analysis as well. So once you've found your site, we can say confirm the geolocation. And this will take just a few minutes to build. Once it finds the site, there we go, it will access that for us and it will give us some options of what we want to do to build it. And there we go. So these little libraries, if we like, that we have available to us, we have one here that's called the starter pack, and it's going to add the roads and the buildings, etc. So if we look at add, it says it's going to add the overture buildings and the overture roads to this site. Okay, so we can look at where that needs to be. It's going to be this area here. I know I've got buildings all around it. Yeah, so we can say add to that. So that's going to add all that information. It says it's placing an order. It's free. It doesn't cost you. We can close these down. But we don't now need to add in the overture buildings because this did it, and the overture roads as well. So both of these have been added by adding that one starter pack. Okay. You might want to add terrain. So we can say add. If it is a sloped site, it has lots of hills around it. You can add that in and it will build in the topography for you. And then anything else that you think you need. The satellite image, for example, the trees, I'm going to add in the trees. So there we go. So we'll say add to that. So each of these little orders or libraries, once you're done, so again, it was the starter package. So it gives us the buildings and the roads, and then the terrain and the trees. We can close this and we'll see what it's building for us. Okay, so I know this area in Glasgow pretty well, and I would like to say, I would like to actually develop this site. Now, the last time we did some training on this, somebody asked, can you use a site that already has some buildings on it? Maybe you want to remove them and propose something else? Absolutely. But remember, we're telling you what you're going to propose. So the type of building, what it is, the spaces, etc. So here's a nice vacant plot. I could use this, or I want to use this plot that's here. So let's say I want to use this plot. This one has nothing on it, and I could just start with the site straight away. But for this one, if I double click on the building, do you see I get a purple boundary to my screen? I can select the building that I don't want and hit the delete key on my keyboard. And I'll do the same with each of these little buildings. I'm just selecting it and then click delete. And all the buildings that were sitting on that site have now gone. And when I'm done, I'll click done. There we go. So ideally, I would like to define my site here. Okay. So in the tools, as we look along here that are available to us in a little shortcut bar, we have the site limit tool. And if I click on that, I can zoom in and we can start to draw around about the site that's there. Down the bottom of your screen, you'll see the compass arrow and a 2D button. If I click the 2D button, currently it's in 3D. If I click 2D, it goes to a bird's eye view, like a floor plan view. Much easier to draw the site in this view. And if I click the little arrow, the north symbol, it will rotate so that it sits exactly north-south on the site. Okay, so now this is a lot easier to click and actually trace out the site boundary. So all I'm going to do is put my cursor where the site boundary is and click on each of the corners. It sometimes snaps, and you can move where it snaps if you zoom in a little bit more. If you don't like where it is, you can just zoom in and get more detail. Here, for example, if I were to snap here, it's going to miss out a lot of the site. So let's pick up most of that. There we go. A good example of that, exactly there. And then just zoom in more if you need it to be exactly to this site. For the purposes of this exercise, we just need it to be approximately anyway. It doesn't need to be exact. But I'll trace around the road that's there. And I mentioned this earlier when we drew walls in Revit, but if you click back on the start point again when you're doing the site, it will finish and define your site that's there. So we can go back down here, and instead of 2D, we can switch to the 3D mode, and we can see the site and how it sits in context with all of the other buildings. Okay. Here on the left, we now have a proposal 1. What we might want to do is click the 3 little dots and say duplicate. And then the 3 little dots and maybe rename that proposal 1-1 or 1.1 or something. What we want to do is this is proposal 1, then this is maybe a tweak of that. Maybe each concept you want to change, maybe it's the same building. So if we go back to this, it's the same building with minor changes. That's up to you if you want to call that concept 2. Okay, so proposal 1, proposal 2, proposal 3, and so on. Okay. What we also want to see, something that the judges will want to see, is before you start to build on the site, an analysis of each of the main analysis types. So let's look at what your site capabilities are at this point. So if we click things like sun hours analysis, you can analyze the entire model. There we go. So we'll run that. You can also go in and select that instead of the entire model, it's the site limit. So be aware, sometimes you will want to choose between the entire model that you have, and sometimes you want to analyze just the actual site itself. You'll see when we want to generate things like photovoltaic energy, for example. Okay, so if we go in and we look at the analysis of what that looks like, the amount of sun hours that we have on the site, let's say, there is an inspect button. And if I click on various parts of the site, we're getting approximately the same number of sun hours, but some areas might get less because of buildings putting them in the shade, etc. So if we look at the little inspect tool, it might be good to lead with this or start with this. A couple of things just to kind of draw your attention to. If you're going to screen print this to put it into a poster or PowerPoint, however you're going to submit this, make sure that the numbers are quite clear, but make sure any of the settings or the values are also clear. Okay, so we'll see that when we look at some of the other analysis as well. So let's look and see, yeah, for sun hours. So you'll notice with this one, we have the entire model. Okay, so the numbers will be the same around about the site, but look at what it's showing me in terms of some of the other buildings. So there's not a lot of sun here. There's more here because of this building, right? So how might this building impact your building? Well, it will if you position your building over here. So there's 6 hours sun versus 16 hours sun. I can't say that more sun is always going to be better. I'm from Glasgow, so I would tend to consider more sun is better. But if you're using a site that has too much sun and the building overheats, and you want to show how you're using shade to help keep the building cool, then maybe this is a great place to build. But you'll have to communicate that to the judges, to the jury team. Okay? So this is actually a really nice image versus maybe the other image only showing you only the site itself. Okay? Daylight potential. So let's run with the entire model. We'll run the analysis. So sun hours analysis is that direct sunlight versus daylight potential. Daylight potential is, think internal space. How much of the internal space is likely to benefit from daylight? The more, possibly again, I might look at it one way and say the higher numbers are better, maybe because I don't want to use artificial light. I don't want to use electricity to light the interior. We have the inspect tool again. So currently I'm seeing the buildings that exist, and we can see big differences in the scores. Okay, so daylight potential might be another one. We can look at the surrounding buildings and your site, etc. that's there. And then wind analysis. So there are 2 types of wind analysis. There is this one that is rapid wind analysis. And what we can see from our site area that we've got, this is generated very, very quickly. It's based on the layout of all the existing buildings, but it's also based on the local weather data. So this should be quite accurate. We have those really light green areas, these kind of areas here. If we look at the legend, we'll match that up. That's comfortable to sit in this area. The other slightly teal or slightly darker green is comfortable for standing in that area. And then we've got some others that are more comfortable for walking. So it's a little bit windy to sit here. Maybe you don't want to have this as a seated area. And maybe you don't want this as the reception. So walking in and out of the building, you might find that it's actually quite windy here. You can, once you've got your concepts, you can generate an analysis. Now it says here it's going to take between 15 and 60 minutes, but with the analysis, it will give you a much more detailed analysis of that. You don't want to do that for every concept. It might take too long. Once you start to put a building in here, you might want to then do that with your final concept, or that might be how you choose between your 2 final concepts. If you have concept 4 and concept 5, is concept 4 or 5 very similar? Run a detailed wind analysis and check what the difference is. Maybe that's going to be the overall method that separates them both. Okay, so again, this should influence your design. Why would you put the building here? Possibly you want more natural ventilation. So if we think about this area here where it is slightly windier, generally throughout the year it's looking at, remember, we can look at specific dates, we can look at specific times, but generally throughout the year this is the windiest area. Maybe you want a naturally wind-driven ventilation building, so that's why you would choose here. Again, you just have to tell the judges. Tell the jury that's why you're selecting that space. We can also look at noise analysis. Now, if I run a noise analysis at this point, we're not getting anything because I haven't populated the roads. Okay, so we can look at all of the site. When we imported these roads, you can click on these lines and then you can edit here and you can add in the details of that. So how many miles per hour, what's the speed limit on that road, and what's the average daily traffic? So you can get these numbers a lot of the time from government websites if you Google the town. So let's say, we'll say something like 10,000 is the average daily traffic. During the day, 84% vehicles, evening 10%, at night 6%, and 10% of that might be heavy traffic. Do you see what happened to the site? Do you see what's happened to the noise? So I know that there's a lot of work happening in this area. They're reducing the speeds. So maybe we go to 20 miles per hour. What does that do to the noise? You see? And then we also can do the same thing for these roads along here. So we'll say these are also 20 miles an hour, but they're 5,000 average daily traffic. So immediately I'm recognizing that this area here, although it was given a lot of shade from this building, this area here is a really comfortable area for maybe it's quieter and it's less windy, for example. Okay, so before I've done anything, I'm going to take each of the analysis and screen print the results. So that's going to be at the start of the poster. And then we can start to show the various designs and the concepts that we draw. Okay, so let's try and put our concept maybe here in the proposal, and then maybe I'll try and put it somewhere else. Over here, it's a little bit noisier, but maybe in my design, maybe I'll spin the rooms around like this. So maybe this would be the north and the south. At this side, which is the noisy side, maybe we put some of the rooms like staircases, bathrooms, the storage areas, maybe they go on this side because it's the noisy side. And then this side, towards, we go back to it, facing towards the east, which is the quiet side. Okay, and it also should get a lot of light as well. So once we're done editing, we can say done. There we go. And we can start to model the concept. Okay. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can, again, go back to a directly north bird's eye view if you want, but I'm just going to sketch, so it's okay as it is. If you want a building that's exactly north-south, if you want a building that's going to sit exactly the same angle as some other buildings, then you're welcome to go and try and recreate in plan view. I'm not going to do it in plan view because I want to show you how the tools work, let's say. Okay. So we have multiple ways of drawing buildings. If our building, if we had managed to, in Revit, create something of just a big cube, a cuboid, it would be super simple. We could draw something using the line building tool. And to use the line building tool, we can set up what the width of it needs to be, how many stories there are. So we say there's 3 stories. It was 4 meters in between the stories. We had something like 6, 12, 14, maybe 18 meters wide. And you basically just click and then you can start to draw in your concept. Okay, so however you want that building on this site. Now I'm going to suggest, let's say we created a building that was 18 by 60 meters. Okay, so I'll click again. So we have this building. This could be concept 1. And I'll run all the analysis on this. That could be concept 1. Okay. You might want to do another concept of exactly the same building sitting somewhere else on the site. Okay, so you wouldn't put them both into one concept. You would have proposal 1, proposal 2, okay? And then if we carry on, you could have another concept and put it somewhere else and so on. Do you see what's starting to happen though, behind the building? It was providing a buffer to the noise. Okay, so maybe what we want to look at might be a line building. Instead of 18 meters wide, maybe we want something narrower that we can model around. Do you see? Like a berm, a sound deadening. Okay, what that's doing is it's going to help with the wind and it's going to help with the noise. We can see that in real time as we draw that in or take it away. So we have proposal 1. Okay, I would like to now analyse proposal 1. So we'll look at the sun hours analysis. And for each, you might want to look at the entire model. Definitely when we get to PV, we don't. We'll see that. You can pick different dates. So you might want to pick a date that is not super sunny, like the shortest day and the longest day, and then run the analysis. And once the analysis is done, you can view the results. So I'll do again daylight, entire model, run the analysis. Wind, yeah, we can look at the wind analysis. It's just a quick analysis. So we have a little bit windy area here. It's creating something like a little wind tunnel, you see? So maybe not good for reception. Whereas here might be really good to position a reception with some benches outside. So you see how I'm already thinking of how might I change my concept, right? Look at this area here. There's lots and lots of comfortable sitting area. So sitting, maybe some outside dining, if we want to look at the outside spaces or reception that's going to be here. And then what does the noise look like? Yeah, it's not super noisy. Maybe up here. Have a look at what rooms are in the plan. So currently, we were saying in that area was an office and a print room and a server. So it might not be the best, but could we move the office and the print and the server? So the print room and the server are here because that's the noisiest part of the building. Okay. And then when we get to the solar energy analysis, so we don't want the entire model. We only want our site. Only our building. And you'll see why. We can do both, but we'll see why when we look at the analysis. Okay. So we have some sun hours analysis is now complete. Yep, we can inspect that. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but if you have a really warm climate, a really sunny, warm country, overheating is a problem, then you can use this as an example of how you're dealing with it, right? When you take that screen print, do you notice here we have some numbers? So we've got things like number of sun hours. So we've got 216 that receive 9 plus. You want to get less than that. So how do you change the shape so you get less than that? Or you want more than that? If you're in Scotland, you want much more than that. So how do you get more? Well, if I get more, I'll move it to this area. Or I'll rotate the building so that it's east to west. Okay, so you will screenshot these and record these. And then if we look at daylight potential, it's the same, it's the full model. But again, anytime you want to screenshot, please use the inspect tool. This is given as the quality of the light. And here you get a score. So we've got 10 to 15, and it gives you a percentage. You've got lots and lots of really good daylight. Can we improve that? How would we improve that? Okay, maybe moving it or rotating it. Wind, we did look at. Noise, we looked at. Solar energy analysis. So this one's an important one, right? Another important one. So we can use the inspect tool by choosing only my building. So do you all notice none of the other buildings have been highlighted orange? I can work out exactly the kilowatt hours per square meters, but the total solar energy that I can create, 945,000 kilowatt hours. You can, if we tell you the surface coverage, 80% of the roof or 50% of the roof is covered with solar panels. The panels are maybe 20% efficient, whatever it might be. You see all of these results. The judges will want to see these results. So make sure when you do any analysis, you keep these results also clear. When you screen print everything into the poster. Okay? And then if I look at proposal 2 and I want to draw exactly the same building, I'm going to draw that same building. Oh, it's not 18 meters. So let's try that again. Plain building, but 18 meters, 3 stories, 4 meters. And we'll draw it here and we'll say it was 60 meters and we'll put it here. So there's the same building for proposal 2. So if I now run the analysis, so we'll run the analysis on the entire model, pick that date, and the daylight is entire model, and the wind, let's have a look at the wind analysis. What does it look like? Really good here. On the south, lots of light, lots of little shade, but also not a lot of wind. Okay. Ignoring at this point the geography, the topography that's there, ignoring that at this point, we can fix that. We've got the wind. Noise, what does the noise look like? Remember this road out here? Yeah, it's good. It's not uncomfortably loud from that noise area there. That's fine. And then the solar energy, not entire model. Okay. So always with the photovoltaic analysis, we don't want the entire model. Otherwise, we get all the electricity from every roof in Glasgow, right? We don't want that. We want to show that it's only for this building. So sun hours analysis, that was the last one. Yep, let's go in and see if we can find it then. There we go. So here's the difference, right? Now we get to check by putting the building in this orientation, we can look at the sun hours analysis and the scores that we get. So is that better or worse? It depends if you're trying to get more sunlight into the building, or are you trying to block the sun with proposal 2 and proposal 1? Okay, so the interpretation of it is up to you, but you have to communicate that to the judges in some way, that you're trying to reduce the amount of light going into the building, for example. So much, much better natural light in this concept. Much better natural light. Okay, and again, we can look at that. And the way you prove it is with these scores. So screenshotting these scores. I'm going to move that over so we can see it. Okay, and then how's the solar energy analysis? So what was the number that we got from the last time? We're comparing the two concepts. So if we look at concept 1, proposal 1 and proposal 2, which of the two is a better concept? Okay, that's up to you to explain which one is the better concept. And then we could look at, so we duplicate that to proposal 3. Let's look at the actual building that we created is a bit different. So we want to create this building this time. So the tools are not the line building. This time we want to use the basic building tools. Okay, so basic building. And then what I want to do is think, where was the best place? Where was the best place on this site and how did that sit? I'm going to say it's maybe here, sitting in this angle here. Okay, so it was 35, 500, 35 and a half. There we go. So we'll say 35 and a half that way. Yeah, let's think. Do we want it to go north-south? Do we want to go east-west? I'm going to try somewhere in between. I'm going to try and sit it at an angle on the site. So then it was 10 meters. You'll notice when you draw, you get a perpendicular sign happening. And then after the 10 meters, it was, let's think, what was it? Oh, I haven't got that size. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 or so meters. And then it was, we're coming back out again, 3. And then we follow that perpendicular down. Yep, until it snaps. And then we go back to point 1. So the reason I'm drawing this in 3D is to let you see the next step. How many stories did we have? So we had 3 stories, but I'm drawing the ground floor, which was just the 1 story. Okay, so just the 1 story, the ground floor. It was 4 meters high. So I'm going to change that in here. And now we've got the ground floor. I want to draw on top of that using the same tool. So basic building. I want to draw on top of it. We can draw in the next floor level. Okay, so let's say it was 25 meters. It might come all the way across. So we'll just guess, and it's 1 story. And it was 4 meters again. And then the final level onto that was, let's say it came all the way along here, but it was only maybe halfway along or something. There we go. So it looked something like that. But again, 4 meters. So there's roughly our concept that we created in Revit that looks something like that, right? So something like that anyway. If I'd taken my dimensions, I would recreate exactly what it looks like. So we have the forma model. This is proposal 3. And I'm going to run all the analysis again on this model and then compare them to proposal 1 and 2. And what I might want to do is I might want to recreate this model, this proposal over here, that's proposal 4. And maybe it sits up here in this angle as proposal 5, or over here is proposal 6, and compare each time what the different analysis results are. Okay, so we'll keep it the same date. Entire model, run analysis. Daylight potential, entire model, run analysis. Wind, what does the wind look like? Remember, this is our reception. Yep, that's pretty good for the reception. It's not very windy. Does everybody notice what's happened here? This has created a very sheltered area. This would be a lovely place for eating, resting, picnic tables, or just waiting areas on the outside. Noise, what's it like for noise? Yep, it could be located better, right? Maybe it could locate better over here. But do you see how this analysis has changed my perception of that? So if I take a screen print of this as concept 3 and I rebuild it sitting here, this is why earlier I spoke about like concept 3.1 and concept 3.2. Concept 3 is maybe all the shapes in building. It looks like this, just in different places. But I'm going to communicate to the judges that I'm reading this and understanding it and acting on it and putting the building in a more sheltered area. So there's much less noise over here. Okay? And then what happens with, I did entire model. So we're going to see what happens with the entire model, but let's do selection only and run the analysis for photovoltaic. we don't want to include all of the solar panels for all of the roofs in Glasgow, okay? You would get a fantastic result. You would get a lot of electricity. But we want to compare building only. So we will look at that. There we go. Does anybody notice any issues? This is good. This is good. This is less good. And this is really not good. Okay. How might you improve that? You might improve that by rotating the building. So when we try again and do this building maybe here, I might be tempted to try it rotated. Okay, so do another concept, but actually rotate the building so that it sits in this axis. Okay, and do it here. So that's proposal 4, right? We could do that. And then compare the analysis. But at every point, just so you're aware, when I view the results, I want to zoom in. I want to give the judges a really good view of that. And we want to inspect across all the different regions and the areas and make sure the judges can see that you've set it up to whatever you're told to set it up to. So if it's 80% coverage, 50% coverage, 18 or 20% panel efficiency, you set it up as you're required to, but show them this. So 28,700 kilowatt hours. Okay, the total solar energy over the year, 364,000 kilowatt hours. So show the judges what you've made. So what's that number? 364 versus, oh, wrong one. A direct comparison, 962. Yes, so that brings a lot more, right? But does it also work with noise? Does it also work as well with sun hours analysis? You will struggle to find a building design on the site that is the best for sun hours and wind and photovoltaic and noise. You will find one is better than the other. It's up to you which you take forward as being the best and the proposal for the best and why it's the best. Okay? But always make sure every time you are screen printing, we, the judges, can see all of the results that are here. So if you use the inspect tool, even if it's multiple angles, to show whatever it is you need to show, and then make sure we can see all of these results that are here. Okay, and that brings it to a conclusion. So does anybody have any questions?
There is an additional question in there, Michael, from earlier. It's regarding twin motion.
Twin motion is not mandatory. Teams can use twin motion and other visualization tools. You're welcome to do that. Obviously, the judges will be looking at things like which spaces have you put on the ground floor and why, which spaces are next to each other and why. Then your presentation of that building. So if you create it in Revit and you render it in twin motion, maybe there's more points for aesthetics of your presentation. Absolutely. Versus if you don't do that, it's not that you have to, but it depends on what the judging criteria is. Hopefully that answers that.
Yes, I think that's all we have on the question front, unless anybody has anything else they want to put into the Q&A.
Yep, feel free.
Yeah, go ahead and do so.
And I have noticed there's a couple of World Skills competitors joined. That's good to see.
Oh, wow. That's very
Nice.
good. It's quite a small world, isn't it?
Very small world.
How should we present our model and its results to juries? Yes, and that will all be very clear on the morning of the briefing. We will be doing, as I said earlier, we'll be doing a local briefing at 8 a.m. in your local time zone, and we will give you very clear and explicit instructions as to what the final presentation of the model and the final submission should look like.
Mhm.
Well, we can tell you it will be in a PDF format. It can be sized down to a PDF format. The final delivery, the judges, including Michael, are happy with this, but the full
Yeah,
scope of what it looks like will be very clearly given to you in the
yeah.
beginning of the briefing.
The way it's kind of been designed is the judges do not need to see your models. They don't need to see the Forma or Revit models. If you were to walk into a room and pin up a series of drawings, posters, however you want to think of that, that is almost what we're trying to replicate. So if you'll hear more on the day, but if it's just a single PDF and everything is contained in that, the judges will just scroll down that, and each of the judges is marking a specific criteria. They'll find the part they need to see, they'll mark your work and move to the next competitor. That's it. But yeah, more on that when it's being released. Hence why it's really important to show that you've used all the rooms, you haven't added any rooms that are not there, you've not missed any, and you have to also show the area of the rooms. What the judges will be looking at is the results that you have in Forma and comparing them to your floor plans and your areas that you said, yeah, are the same concept, let's say, that type of thing. So it's really important that you can validate and prove that your building is within the requirements set in the brief.
We do have a question here asking if it's a requirement for each participant to keep their camera on during the entire competition. I think it's a good opportunity to just reiterate, Michael, you did explain
Yeah,
earlier. While you're on live for the first hour, while we deliver the briefing, the actual competition is offline. So you guys have all the day of August the 18th, that night, and right through until 6 p.m. on August the 19th, a full 34 hours, where you will not be online, but you will be working together collaboratively to pull the project together. So hopefully that answers your question. So the only online presence really is the morning of the briefing, which is 8 a.m. in your local time zone. And I will be
yeah.
communicating that on email to all of you over the coming days.
Now, that is the other thing for me is I did something very similar to this when I was a student. I was an architectural technology student, and we had the 2 days. The lecturer gave us the brief, and we had 2 days to complete that and then submit that. Um, Make sure you get to sleep. Make sure you don't everybody stay up all night. The competition is not overly what would you say, complex, that you can work on it one day, office hours, and then the next day, office hours, and submit. Yeah, please don't anybody feel that they need to stay up all evening and all night, stay up working on it. However, some teams might choose to do that, and you might, what we did, we delegated. One person did a few hours, and then someone else, and then someone else, and then someone else, and yeah. But make sure you take care of your own health, physical and mental. It should be enjoyable. It's designed to be enjoyable. Hopefully, it's not stressful. But I would be interested to hear the feedback. I'm sure Vanessa and Thomas would as well.
Yeah, well, there is a 34-hour window in there. So we're hoping and anticipating that's going to give students time to
Yeah,
collaborate, to put a very good project together, but
yeah.
also to eat and to sleep and to rest. Great. I think everybody has stayed with us right through to the very end of the
Yeah,
training, which is fantastic. And guys, we'll just give you another few moments to get any further questions in there. Um, in the meantime, I do kind of want to remind you that we are going to put this onto our YouTube channel. I'm going to share the link with you guys shortly. I'll put it into the chat as well. And the other reminders are to definitely register for our app. I will send the link for that as well in the chat and later on email. And just keep an eye on the competition website. We will be posting news on that. So there are a couple of different outlets to keep an eye on over the next couple of days. Keep an eye in your inbox. I'll be sending emails with, communications in relation to final steps in your preparation, reminders of your briefing time. And so at least have one of your team keep an eye on that. And yeah, there's a Buildathon email address that I will also share with you guys. Again, when the recording is ready, we will share this. It could be tomorrow, but I'll make sure you all get it. So we have numerous different ways where you can contact us. And you can contact us through the Buildathon email address that I will share. And if you are in the app, which I encourage you to definitely sign up for, you can also ask questions in that environment as well. So hopefully between all of those different environments, you will get the information you need and the support that you need to do well in this Buildathon.
Yeah. And I think, Vanessa, you also sent out the Autodesk course, didn't you? The Introduction to BIM for Architectural Design.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And what
those,
yes.
yeah, those are a couple of really good programs. If you look at the Introduction to BIM for Architectural Design specifically, that's on the Autodesk learning page, it's a really good resource. I don't say that because I created it. I know it's good because it aligns to what we're trying to do. So
Perfect, absolutely. And I will make sure that that is specified as well when I send out the communication to you guys, probably tomorrow morning now at this stage, when the recording is ready to send. So there's lots and lots of content in there, and it's not an overload of content. I think, the different forums are presenting the same content in a different way. So we hope it's supportive and not overwhelming.
yep, will we receive the instructions in writing? So Vanessa, you're going to introduce it to them and then they can download everything, right?
Yes. The recording of this.
No, the instructions.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the brief,
Oh, the
etc.
brief. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
The brief. Yeah, so the brief, what will happen is on the morning, again, as I keep saying, on the morning of August the 18th at 8 a.m. in your local time zone, we will deliver the brief live for the first time. And that meeting will take place probably 45, 50 minutes. And on completion of that meeting, I will ensure that that brief, that exact brief, is emailed out to all of your team. So you have it ready to start your competition. So you will get it immediately after. Just
Good.
before 9 a.m. your local time.
Excellent.
Do we have another
So I do
question?
notice we have people from China on now, and it is what is almost it's coming up to midnight. We're 11:30. Suyan Lee, I think it is messaging saying they were from China. So well done,
Okay.
staying till this time.
Absolutely, that's dedication for you. So well done. Yeah, fantastic. And hopefully you'll get some good rest after this with all the information circulating in the brain throughout the course of the night. So it's all good.
No, everyone's leaving this to go practice Revit and Forma.
Okay,
Perfect.
so I'll be in touch, guys, tomorrow, very early with all of the information we spoke about, with the recording, with the links that you need, with the support of the training material. And again, keep an eye out on your inbox. Please get your team members to ensure they're keeping an eye on their email over the next few days, because a lot of important dates and reminders will be coming your way. And thank you for coming online. Thank you for sticking with us. And Michael, thank you for a very, very lovely delivery. From a non-technical perspective, I enjoyed it, and I hope everybody here found the content beneficial.
Like I said, it's just super interesting, isn't it? If you don't think this is interesting, I apologise, but I do.
It shows. It shows. The
I
passion
think
shows. Oh,
I just feel so
absolutely.
lucky. I get to teach this every day. It's brilliant.
Okay, so we'll close the call, and guys, stay in touch, and you know how to reach out to us and use the forums to communicate with us over the next few days. And yeah, best of luck in your preparation.
Thank you.
Come on, Buildathon 2026. Yay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.